Welcome to Game Foundry Reviews. In this video, we're going to take a look at Tower of Babel. In Tower of Babel, players are working with each other, but also against each other to build 8 ancient buildings, the 8th being the Tower of Babel. Let's jump right in with a description of the rules, see a few example turns being played, then I'll be back for some closing remarks. This is Tower of Babel, set up for a 3-player game. To set up, each player just picks a color and takes all the building parts in that color, puts one of them on the 0 space of the start track, and then puts their column on the turn order track. Whoever's going to go first goes to the bottom, and then just clockwise from there, like so. Also, you put the scoring marker on the top space of the scoring table up here, and you shuffle the deck of building cards. You're going to deal everybody a hand of 4 building cards, and you're also going to give them 1 trading card. And right here it's face up so you can see it, but it's going to go in their hand with the other building cards. It has the same back. Players also need to decide if they're going to use the 2-color disc, which you can see an example of here. In this case, we are using them. If you're using them, you just remove 1 disc of each color with a 5 on it, and then you're going to shuffle up the discs and lay them out face up like so in the different spaces as indicated on the board. The only other part of setup is if you're going to use the action cards, which are these blue cards here, you shuffle them and make a face down deck. I say if you want to use them because there's a little bit of controversy there since they were an item added by the publisher, so some people don't like to include them. At any rate, during the game, players take their turns in clockwise order, and they're either going to be passing or building. The game ends when the last disc of 1 color is taken, which is followed by a final scoring. At the end of the final scoring, whoever has the most points is going to be the winner. So as mentioned, during a player's turn, they're either going to pass or build. If a player chooses to pass, they're just going to draw 2 cards from the building deck, and all other players are going to draw 1. Then they're just going to shift the columns down, with theirs now going to the top. The build action is a little more complicated. It's made up of 5 parts, which are select a wonder, make offers, select opponents, build, and then there's an end of building phase. During the select a wonder phase, all you do is you take your column, if it's your turn, and you place it on whichever wonder you decide that you want to build a part of. So if a player wanted to build this one, for instance, they would put their column right there. After you do that, you pick one of the 3 discs, or if there may be less later in the game, and you put the disc you want on top of your column. That's the disc you're going to be building this turn. Next is the make an offer step, in which all of your opponents are going to make you an offer up to the number of cards depicted here. So that's 3. So any individual opponent can offer 1, 2, or 3 cards, and they're going to put them face down. There's 2 ways to make an offer. One is with only building cards, and the other is with the trading card and building cards. The trading card can't be by itself, but point being, players can put cards face down that they want to offer you, again up to the number there, and then ultimately they're going to reveal what things they've put down. Now for this particular case, this is a brown token or a camel token, so they need to offer brown or camel cards. So none of these cards here would even help, but players can certainly put them face down at this time. So after all opponents have made their offers, you're going to reveal them by flipping them all face up at the same time. And any of the cards that don't correspond with this particular color, in this case everything, just goes right back to the player's hands. If somebody had offered a brown card, like let's say this guy over here put down 2 browns and a trading card, we would reveal those, and we would see that these do match the color here. Next, the active player gets to decide which offers, if any, they're going to take. So let's also pretend this guy had made an offer over here of this. If a player chooses to take an offer, he has to take the whole offer. So for instance, he couldn't just take one of these camels. He had to take both camels and the trading card there. So he has to look at his own hand and decide what he has. He sees he only has 1 camel, and this one requires him 3 camels to complete. I also want to point out that for these, there's different requirements based on color. So this would be 3 camels and then 2 of the gray things. So he knows he only has 1, so he's going to need to accept at least 2 camels. So if he takes this person's offer, that would get him there. You can take multiple offers, but again, you can never accept more cards, building cards, than the number shown on the disc. It's also important to note that you can only ever accept 1 deal with a trading card. So if this player over here had also offered a trading card, there's no possibility to accept both of these offers. If only one has a trading card, it is possible for them both to be accepted. So let's just pretend, for example, this offer was rejected and this offer over here was accepted. So this player has to add brown cards from their hand equal to this amount in order to complete building the item. So now we can see we have 3 brown, and that requires 3, so we are going to build it. Now all players involved in the build get to put as many building parts as cards offered. So this red player himself offered 1 card, so he gets to put 1. This guy over here would normally get to put 2. However, he has a trading card, which means he's essentially trading that right to the red player. So the red player would get to put the 2. However, normally the player whose turn it is gets the disc, but the trading card player gets the disc instead. So if this player didn't have a trading card, just to make this clear, he would put the 2 black parts because he's played 2 cards, and the red player would get this disc. But if you do play the trading card, you're essentially trading that ability to get the disc, which goes face down in front of you. And that's why only 1 trading card can be accepted per turn. It's also possible that insufficient brown camels were revealed to complete this build. If that happened, nobody gets to put parts of any kind, and this disc would just go back here, and that would essentially move on to the end of build phase. In the end of build phase, anybody involved in the build discards their cards face up. They're going to be out of the game, and they have their parts here. Also, in our example, that would be here. Any trading cards go back to their players' hands. You always get to keep your trading card throughout the game. However, any opponent's offers who are not selected, like this player over here, gets 1 point for every relevant card offered. So, you know, if he had offered also like a gray card, that would have done nothing, so that would have just gone back to his hand. But any cards he still has out in his offer, he gets a point for, and then those are going to go back to his hand, so yellow would get a point there, and he would get this card back. That also happens if the disc was not built. So if this player had offered 1 and this player had offered 2 camels, and for whatever reason the player didn't accept any of the offers or things like that, this player would get 1 point and this player would get 2 points, and they would get the cards back to their hand because nothing was actually built. In either case, all players, including the active player, draw 1 card from the building deck, and then we're just going to shift these down and put this one on top. The only other game mechanic is scoring, and that occurs when the last disc of a wonder is built. So when this third disc was built, we would immediately have a scoring phase. What happens during a scoring phase is going to be dictated by where the scoring marker is along this track. So whoever has the most building parts on that wonder, once it's completed, gets the most points. Whoever has the second most gets the second most, and then anybody else who has at least 1 part gets 3 points. If there's a tie for first, all those players are going to actually get the second value, then anybody else will just get the 3 points. If there's a tie for second, those guys are all going to get 3 points, and the person in first will still get it. So after you score it, you move the marker down 1, so you can see later in the game the things will be worth more points for completion. Also, if you're playing with the action cards, the player that its turn it was when the wonder was completed draws one of these action cards, and you essentially can use them at any point during the game. They can be very powerful. So the game ends when the last building disc of one color is taken, and these 2 colored ones count as both colors, so that counts as a pink one and a gray one. But when the last one of these is taken off the board, the final scoring occurs. If there's a regular scoring, meaning the last disc of a wonder was taken, that makes the last disc of a color taken, you still score that wonder first, but then the final scoring takes place. So during final scoring, you're only going to score the unfinished wonders. You're going to take this marker wherever it may be, you're going to put it on the light spaces here, and you're going to score unfinished wonders. Anything that was finished, the players would have taken their pieces back after the individual scoring. The final scoring works just like any other scoring, except you're always here. You don't ever shift this down for each unfinished one. So whoever has the most building parts is going to get 10, second most 5, and anybody else who has at least 1 gets 3. Players are also going to get bonus points from this table down here based on how many discs they have of each color. So for instance, if you have 4 discs of one color, that's worth 20 points. If you have a 2-colored disc, you have to choose which color it is. It doesn't count as both colors, because if you have 4 pinks and 3 grays, that would be 20 plus 10, that would be 30 bonus points. You score for every color you have, but again, these only count as one color if they're using them in the game. Whoever has the most points at the end of this is going to be the winner. Let's get going with this playthrough. Players' hands are normally for their eyes only, but they're face up here to make it easy to see. So we can see the yellow player is going to go first, and he can either pass or build. He decides he wants to build. Because he has 2 grays in his hand, he wants to go for this gray down here. So now the other players have to make him an offer. And remember, you can't do the trading card by itself. So this guy puts the trading card with 1 gray, and this guy puts 2 gray. So now players are going to reveal their offers, and this player has to choose if he wants to accept 0, 1, or both of them. Of course, if he accepts both of them, that would put the total amount of 3 out on the board. So he decides he would like to get this disc for himself, so he's only going to accept this guy's offer. So this guy, unfortunately, offer was not accepted. So he gets these 2, and then he's going to add 1 for himself to meet the total of 3 as shown on this disc. So because he added 1 card, he gets to put 1, and because this guy supplied 2 cards, he gets to put 2 black building parts on this space. Also, since he didn't accept any deals with a trading card, he gets this disc for himself, which he puts face down in front of him. These cards are discarded, but since this guy was rejected, he gets 1 victory point. So we'll move him up 1 space in the track, and that's the end of the turn after everybody draws 1 new card. So lastly, this just goes to the top, and these shift down, and now it's the red player's turn. He's going to take a turn just like that, but we're going to jump ahead a little bit later in the game so you can see some more interesting situations such as scoring. Welcome back. As you can see, we've progressed quite a bit in the game. It's now the black player's turn. We know that because he's in the bottom. He decides he's actually going to take a pass action. So when you do that, you draw 2 cards, and everybody else draws 1.
as usual, because at the end of every action, everybody draws a card. You basically get an extra one. Then he goes down to the top, and yellow comes down the bottom, so it's his turn. He decides he wants to build, so he's going to put it here. There's only one disc left, but it is a 2-colored. It's for 2 pink and 3 gray, so he needs offers from the other players. This player decides he's going to offer 2 pink and a gray, and this guy decides he's going to offer 2 gray and a pink. So we're going to reveal those, and then the player gets to decide whose offer he wants to accept. He can accept 0, 1, or both offers. He has some pinks and grays of himself. He decides, because red doesn't have any tokens here yet, he's going to accept red's offer. So that means all the pink are supplied, and he'll only need to supply 2 grays. So he supplies those 2 grays, which means he gets to add 2 yellow here. And then this red player gets to add 3 because he supplied 2 pinks and a gray. And then these cards will be discarded as usual. And the player who played this, which is the yellow player, meaning it took the action, he's going to take this token, put it in his area, because nobody else had a trading card. If they had a trading card, remember, you would switch who places them, the parts, and who takes the token. So these are all discarded. And then, because this was a completed area now, all 3 of these are gone, a scoring takes place. We've already scored one earlier in the game, so we're up to this spot. It's going to move after we're done. So whoever has the most is going to get 10 points. Yellow has 5 here, so yellow is going to score 10 points. And then black has the second most, so black's going to get 5 points. And red has at least 1, so red's going to get 3. And then next, black offered 3 cards, and they were not accepted as part of this deal. So he's also going to get 3 points for that. He's going to get those cards back. Now at this time, everybody's going to take their markers back because this one is completed. Also, if you're playing with the action cards, yellow would draw one at this time because it was yellow's turn when this was completed. And then as usual, at the end of the turn, everybody's going to draw 1 card, and then it's going to become the red player's turn. And then because we completed a scoring, we move the scoring marker down 1 space in the scoring table. We're going to jump ahead a little bit later in the game so you can see the final situation. Welcome back. It's getting near the end of the game. It's the black player's turn. We know this because he's on the bottom again. He decides he's going to go up here and try to build this 6 of pink. So everybody's going to make him an offer. This guy's going to give him the trading card and 3 pinks, and this guy's going to give him the trading card and 2 pinks. He decided he'd rather this guy have it than the other guy, so he accepts this offer, meaning that he's got to supply 4 pinks of his own, which he does. So he's going to put 4, 5, 6 markers out there. But this guy's actually going to claim the token because he gets the trading card. So they've traded their markers for the discs. So with 6 out here, we're going to score this now, even though that's the end of the game because that was the last pink on the board. This still scores normally, and this player is still going to get 3 points for his rejected offer. So we'll give him those points now. So anyway, we're at 18, so we know black has the most, so black's going to get 18 points, and then second is yellow, so yellow's going to get 9, and red is up there, he just gets 3. And after that, technically this would move down, but it's the end of the game and it doesn't matter. So black player would also get an action card because it's his turn if you're playing with the action cards in the game. We are not at this particular time. So anyway, these come off the board, and now we're going to go to the final scoring. So for the final scoring, you always move the marker to the light colored area here, and we score the unfinished areas, which are going to be 10, 5, and 3. So right here, yellow we know is going to get 10. So he's going to do that. And then red is going to get 5. And then over here, it's black that gets the 10. And again, red gets the 5. And the last part of final scoring is evaluating these discs. So we're just going to lay them out in the groups based on the different colors that they are. And remember, these 2 colored ones, you pick which group they are. They don't count as both. So this guy's got a group of 3, which we can see in the table here is worth 10. Another group of 3, which is another 10. And a group of 4, which is a 20. So that's 40 points, which is quite a lot of points. The red player here has a group of 5 brown. Now, unfortunately for him, 4 plus is still 20. So he's just going to get 20 points there. And lastly, the black player has got 2 groups of 2 and a group of 1. Ones are not worth anything. So that's just going to be 5 plus 5 is 10 points. So the winner is the yellow player.
Tower Babble is a simple game that plays pretty quickly. Player turns go really fast. If a player passes, of course, it's just immediate. Everybody basically just draws their card. And if a player chooses to build, everybody's kind of involved in some way. And, you know, there's some table talk that can certainly go on where people can bluff or even tell people what they're going to put down and sort of make arrangements ahead of time before revealing. And then you see what they actually put down. And that keeps the game interesting. And there's always that element of, you know, should I offer the trading card? What does he really want out of this? Because I want him to accept my deal. And sometimes you don't even want them to accept your deal because you want to keep your cards in your hand and you just get a few points for having a rejected offer. There's even some cases where you just essentially don't want a guy to be able to build and things like that. So that keeps the game interesting, but it all goes very fast. It comfortably plays in under an hour, and it doesn't really get any longer with more players, although a little bit. I tend to play exclusively without the action cards because I find them very swingy, and it sort of takes away certain elements of the game that I like. But some people will find that, you know, extra added thing a little bit more interesting and prefer it that way. So, you know, try it either way and see what you like. But if this looked like a game you would want to try out, it's Tower of Babel.